In terms of the rules package, we saw High Limit kind of diverge a little bit this year with some of the things they did, and the World of Outlaws obviously just came out with a rules bulletin for next year with tail tanks and some different things, body work. And on top of that, there's been kind of some interesting rumors out there about tires and different tire companies. Do you foresee their kind of continuing to be divergence between the two series in terms of rules, or is your hope that they stay more similar?
I think right now they're going to stay more similar. I think the rules that were different last year didn't really affect anything, and we kind of thought that would be the case. That's why we didn't maybe view that as a big deal, where I think a lot of other people maybe did. But I think the tire pumps we viewed as, if there's some innovation there, we feel like that could be a safer thing. As the tires get hot and then you get long reds and long yellows, you lose tire pressure. To me, that's a safety thing. But a lot of the guys and a lot of people that complained have never sat in these cars and driven in these corners with 5 or 6 pounds in the right rear, and so that was a way potentially to mitigate some of that. And to me, anytime you can make innovation and safety, I feel like it's worth it. The shock adjuster, I felt like, was just that we're getting to a point where we're getting maybe a little too much parity with one right rear tire, flat top wings, just trying to give a little bit of something for the drivers to have as a tool besides a wing slider. Maybe they can make an adjustment under a yellow or red, or make their car better, create some passing or something. And, instead of just being kind of stuck with what you got. So, as far as that, I think with the wheel cover stuff, I think that is totally a safety thing. And we've definitely heard it from the racetracks that we just can't afford the wheel covers flying into the grandstand. So they felt like the Zeus ones flew off a lot more than the bolted ones. They have a lot more liability than anybody else. So if that's the direction that the racetracks want to go, we're certainly behind them, especially when it's Eldora and Knoxville kind of wanting that to happen. Then you have to listen. So we support that. The tail tanks is an interesting one. I've heard a lot of people say, like, you could hold the tail tanks on with 4 bolts, and I definitely agree you could. But the manufacturers didn't really want to take the inserts out or change the way that they built their tanks. So I think it was time for the industry to at least acknowledge that we needed to keep the tanks on the cars. We don't need them flying off or going in the grandstands, or it's when they come loose, it seemed like they were really puncturing and things were happening. So and maybe it's not the best answer, but I thought adding 2 more bolts and not really saying exactly how they had to do it was pretty open minded on kind of putting it in the team's hands to figure out how to, whether they just run 2 plates or whatever they do. We know that good teams could do it with 4 if they really wanted to, but a retrofit with 2 more and then using the 4 existing inserts kind of was, I think, a fair way that the Outlaws ultimately came up with that rule, and we support that one. So I don't think past that, I don't think the tires are going to change from anything that I've heard. Not saying that we don't want them to change.
I
I
did
just
hear you were one of the drivers that tested.
Yeah, so we tested tires, and we've definitely learned some stuff that I thought that Hoosier would probably implement in 2026. But there's a lot of logistics that go into tire changes, from regional and local distributors, and manufacturing processes and cost associations. So hopefully, I'm hoping that Hoosier continues to learn and innovate, and keeps safety and keeps the product in mind as far as entertainment value and things like that. And I think they ultimately will. But I think I thought they would probably make the change this year. I think it's probably a year out, maybe. So we'll see. There's a lot on the tire front that could change in the next couple of years. I know American Racer, has made a push to, be involved in the sport. They're involved in Australia, kind of dual manufacturers. So, that might be a direction the sport goes into the future, is opening that back up, but not really sure. You don't, until you really have the big races, the Knoxville Nationals or the Kings Royals, those are the events that kind of control kind of the rules packages. And right now World Racing Group kind of has those events, and we want our drivers to be as competitive as possible. So we certainly don't want to get our rules package too far off, and we certainly want to stay aligned with the rest of the country, on the rules so that all cars can participate in every event. It makes a lot more sense for promoters and for race fans, and for the race teams.